My mother made me sleep in the garage during a family reunion because her poodle hated my scent. Then asked me to walk him every morning. What happened next will shock you. Before I tell you this story, please like, share, subscribe, and comment about where you're watching from. Hi, I'm Maya Rodriguez, and I'm 30 years old. The story you're about to listen to changed my life forever. I thought I knew what family meant. I thought love was supposed to be unconditional. I was wrong about everything. Let me take you back to 6 months ago, when I was still that girl who bent over backward for everyone else. I was the one they called when things fell apart. The one who fixed everything. The one who never said no. I had 2 jobs back then. During the day, I worked at a small accounting firm downtown, crunching numbers until my eyes burned. At night, I waited tables at Rosa's Diner, serving coffee to truckers and late-night students. Why 2 jobs? Because my mother's mortgage was drowning her, and somebody had to keep the family afloat. That somebody was always me. Maya, honey, I hate to ask, but could you cover this month's payment? Mom would call me every 30 days like clockwork. Her voice always carried that same apologetic tone, but somehow I knew she wasn't really sorry. She expected it. They all did. I lived in a tiny studio apartment across town, but I might as well have been living in their back pockets. Every crisis became my emergency. Every problem became my responsibility. When Cousin Jake got arrested for drunk driving, who do you think they called to bail him out? When Aunt Carmen's car broke down, who drove 3 hours to pick her up? When baby Elena needed a sitter so her parents could have date night, who canceled her own plans? Me. Always me. But here's the thing. Nobody talks about when you're the family caretaker. You become invisible. You're useful, but you're not really seen. You're appreciated when they need something, but forgotten when they're celebrating. I remember the exact moment I realized this. It was my birthday last year, and I'd been working double shifts all week to help pay for my cousin's wedding dress. I came home exhausted, expecting maybe a text message or a voicemail. Nothing. My phone was silent. But later that night, I saw all the Facebook posts about Cousin Rebecca's promotion at work. Everyone was congratulating her, planning a celebration dinner. They'd forgotten my birthday existed. I stared at my phone for an hour that night, watching their comments pour in about Rebecca's success. I kept waiting for someone to remember, to say something, to acknowledge that I existed beyond my ability to solve their problems. Nobody did. You're too sensitive, Maya, Mom would say whenever I brought up feeling left out. You know we love you. You're just different from the rest of us. More serious, more responsible, different. That word followed me everywhere. I was different when I couldn't afford the designer clothes they wore to family gatherings. Different when I had to work weekends while they went to brunch. Different when I chose to stay home and rest instead of joining their spa days that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. But different also meant reliable. Different meant they could count on me to sacrifice my own comfort for theirs. Different meant I would never complain too loudly or ask for too much. I should have seen the warning signs. I should have recognized the pattern. But when you're raised to believe that love means service, that family means obligation, you don't question the system. You just keep giving until there's nothing left. The breaking point started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning in March. Maya, perfect timing, honey. Mom's voice was bright and cheerful, the way it always got when she wanted something big. I need to talk to you about something exciting. I was getting ready for work, rushing around my apartment trying to find a clean blouse. What's up, Mom? We're having a family reunion. Isn't that wonderful? Everyone's going to be here. Uncle Carlos is flying in from Phoenix, and Aunt Sophia is driving up from Mexico with all the kids. Even Cousin Miguel is coming. And you know how busy he is with his new business. I paused, holding my blouse halfway over my head. That sounds nice, Mom. When? Next month. And here's the best part. We're having it at my house. Everyone will stay here for the whole weekend. It'll be like the old days when you were little. Something cold settled in my stomach. Everyone's staying at your house? Well, most everyone. The house is pretty full, but we'll make it work. It's going to be such a beautiful time together. I waited for her to mention where I would stay. The silence stretched between us like a gulf. Mom, what about me? Oh, sweetie, of course you'll be here too. Your family. Speaking of which, I was hoping you could help me plan everything. You know how good you are at organizing these things. The cold feeling spread through my chest. Help you plan everything? Just the little details, coordinating everyone's flights, making sure the guest rooms are ready, planning the meals. You know, the things that make a reunion special. I do it myself, but you know how I get overwhelmed with all the details. I sat down on my bed, suddenly feeling exhausted. Mom, I work 2 jobs. I don't have time to plan a whole reunion. Oh, Maya, don't be dramatic. It's just a few phone calls and some grocery shopping. Besides, everyone contributes in their own way. This is how you contribute. This is how you contribute. Not by being present, not by being celebrated, by working behind the scenes while everyone else enjoyed the fruits of my labor. I need to think about it, I said. Think about what? Maya, this is family. We don't think about family. We just show up. But I did think about it. I thought about it while I served coffee to strangers who thanked me more warmly than my own relatives ever had. I thought about it while I balanced spreadsheets for clients who valued my expertise. I thought about it while I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling of my tiny apartment that somehow felt more like home than my mother's house ever had. And despite every instinct screaming at me to say no, I called her back the next day. I'll help with the reunion. Oh, wonderful. I knew you'd come through. You always do. That phrase would haunt me for weeks. You always do. Because it was true. I always did come through. I always said yes. I always sacrificed my own needs for theirs. And they had come to expect it as naturally as they expected the sun to rise. What I didn't expect was how that expectation would nearly destroy me. The planning consumed my life for the next 3 weeks. I spent my lunch breaks calling airlines to coordinate flight times. I spent my evenings after work researching catering options and comparing prices. I spent my weekends driving from store to store, buying linens and toiletries and groceries. Every conversation with a family member started the same way. Maya, thank God you're handling this. I'm so busy with work, kids, life. You're amazing for doing all this. Amazing. Not appreciated enough to be included in the planning discussions. Not valued enough to be consulted on major decisions, but amazing enough to do all the work while they took credit for the results. The guest room assignments came via a group text that I wasn't included in. I found out through a screenshot my cousin Rosa sent me, thinking I'd already seen it. Wait, I texted back. Where am I sleeping? The response came from my mother an hour later. Oh, honey, I meant to talk to you about that. The house is completely full. But don't worry, I have a perfect solution. Perfect solution. Those words still make my skin crawl. I called her immediately. Mom, what's the perfect solution? Well, you know how Prince has been acting lately. Ever since I got him groomed at that new place, he's been so sensitive to different scents. The vet said it's probably anxiety related. Prince, her precious white poodle, who got groomed more often than I got haircuts, who ate organic food while I lived on ramen noodles, who had his own bedroom while I was about to be homeless during my own family reunion. What does Prince have to do with where I'm sleeping? He's been having such a hard time when there are too many unfamiliar smells in the house. The vet specifically said to minimize his exposure to new scents during stressful times. And with all these people coming, Mom, I'm not a new scent. I'm your daughter. I know, sweetheart, but you live in that apartment now, and you work at that diner. You pick up different smells. It's not your fault, but Prince has been so anxious. I felt something crack inside my chest. Are you saying I smell? No. God, no. You're being dramatic again. I'm just saying that Prince is basically family too, and I can't risk his health just for sleeping arrangements. Besides, I have that lovely cot in the garage. It's actually quite comfortable. The garage. She wanted me to sleep in the garage so her dog wouldn't be anxious about my scent. Mom, it's August. The garage doesn't have air conditioning. It's not that hot at night, and you're young and strong. You'll be fine. Besides, it's just for 3 nights. You can handle anything for 3 nights. You can handle anything. Another phrase that would echo in my mind for months. Because I could handle anything, apparently. I could handle being displaced by a poodle. I could handle sleeping in a sweltering garage while my cousins enjoyed silk sheets in central air. I could handle being treated like hired help instead of family. I could handle anything except my own breaking point. But I didn't know that yet. I still believed that love meant sacrifice, that family meant enduring discomfort for the greater good, that if I just kept giving, kept serving, kept handling everything, eventually I'd earn the love and respect I craved. I was wrong about that too. Fine, I said. I'll sleep in the garage. You're such a good daughter, Maya. I don't know what I'd do without you. As I hung up the phone, I wondered if she'd ever have to find out. The day everyone arrived was chaos. Pure, beautiful chaos that I orchestrated from behind the scenes while everyone else enjoyed the reunion I'd planned. I'd taken the entire weekend off from both jobs, using vacation days I'd been saving for a real vacation I'd never take. I'd spent the morning decorating the house with flowers and balloons, preparing welcome baskets for each guest room, and making sure every detail was perfect. When Uncle Carlos walked through the door, he swept my mother into a huge hug. Amanda, this place looks incredible. You've outdone yourself. My mother beamed. Thank you. I wanted everything to be perfect for everyone. I stood in the corner, holding a tray of welcome drinks, invisible as always. She'd wanted everything to be perfect. She'd planned every detail. She'd made it all happen. I was just the ghost who'd actually done the work. One by one, the family members arrived. Aunt Sophia with her 3 kids, all of whom immediately started running through the house I'd just finished cleaning. Cousin Miguel with his new girlfriend, who gushed about how Pinterest perfect everything looked. Cousin Rosa with her husband and baby, who needed extra towels in a high chair and special organic baby food that I'd had to drive to 3 different stores to find. Each arrival brought the same pattern: enthusiastic gratitude directed at my mother, followed by immediate requests for things I'd need to handle. Amanda, you're incredible. Oh, Maya, could you show us to our room? And is there somewhere we can put the baby's bottles in the fridge? This place is amazing. Maya, do you know where the extra blankets are? It gets cold when I sleep. You've thought of everything. Maya, honey, could you help me bring in the rest of our luggage? By evening, I was exhausted. I'd been running up and down stairs for hours, solving problems, answering questions, and making sure everyone was comfortable. My mother was in the living room, holding court with a glass of wine, regaling everyone with stories about how stressful it had been to plan such a big gathering. It's been weeks of preparation, she said, laughing. I barely slept last night, making sure everything was ready. I stood in the doorway, watching her lie so effortlessly. She'd barely slept because she'd been excited, not because she'd been working. I was the one who'd been awake at 3 a.m., making sure I hadn't forgotten anything. "Well, it shows," Aunt Sophia said. "Everything is perfect. You're such a good hostess." "Thank you. I just wanted everyone to feel special." I turned away before I said something I'd regret. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to get away from the sound of my mother accepting praise for my work. I stepped outside into the backyard, where the summer evening air was thick and heavy. The garage loomed in front of me, its single window dark and unwelcoming. My home for the next 3 nights. I'd set up the cot earlier, along with a small fan I'd bought with my own money. The space smelled like motor oil and old cardboard. The concrete floor was cold despite the heat outside. This was where I'd sleep, while everyone else enjoyed the comfortable bedrooms I'd prepared for them. A knock on the garage door made me jump. "Maya, are you out here?" It was Cousin Rosa, holding baby Elena. "Mom said you were staying out here. Is this where you're sleeping?" I nodded, suddenly embarrassed. "Just for the weekend. The house is pretty full." Rosa looked around the garage, her expression shifting from confusion to something that might have been pity. "Maya, this is where you're sleeping?" "It's fine. Really, it's just 3 nights." "But why aren't you in the house? There are couches. There's the office." I could have told her the truth. I could have explained about Prince and his scent sensitivity and my mother's priorities. But the humiliation was already burning in my chest, and I couldn't bear to say it out loud. "I offered to sleep out here," I lied. "I like the space." Rosa didn't look convinced, but she didn't push. "Well, if you need anything." "I'm fine, really." But I wasn't fine. As I lay on that narrow cot later that night, listening to the sound of laughter and conversation drifting from the house, I felt more alone than I'd ever felt in my life. I was 30 years old, sleeping in a garage, displaced by a poodle, after spending weeks planning a reunion, where I was treated like hired help instead of family. And the worst part? I'd accepted it all. I'd said yes to every request, solved every problem, and thanked them for the opportunity to serve. I stared at the ceiling, where a single bare bulb cast harsh shadows across the concrete walls. Tomorrow would bring new requests, new problems to solve, new ways to make myself useful while remaining invisible. But that night, for the first time in my life, I started to wonder, what if I stopped saying yes? What if I stopped being the person who handled everything? What if I stopped being different and started being something else entirely? I didn't know it then, but those questions would change everything. They would lead me down a path I never expected to walk, toward a confrontation I never thought I'd have the courage to face. The breaking point was coming. I could feel it building like a storm on the horizon, ready to tear apart everything I thought I knew about family, love, and what I was worth. But first, I had to survive the next 2 days. I had to play the role I'd been assigned one more time before I finally found the strength to write my own ending. The morning came too soon, announced by the sound of my phone alarm at 6 a.m. I'd barely slept, tossing and turning on the narrow cot while the fan pushed hot air around the stuffy garage. My neck ached from the thin pillow, and my clothes were damp with sweat. But I had a job to do. The first sound I heard from the house was Prince barking. Sharp, demanding barks that pierced through the morning quiet like nails on a chalkboard. Then came my mother's voice, sweet and cooing. "Oh, Prince, baby, do you need to go outside? Mama's precious boy needs his morning walk, doesn't he?" I lay there for a moment, staring at the concrete ceiling, wondering if she'd actually expect me to walk her dog after making me sleep in the garage to avoid disturbing him. The answer came 30 seconds later when my phone buzzed with a text. "Maya, honey, Prince needs his walk. Could you take him out? Everyone else is still sleeping, and you're up early anyway. Thanks." I read the message 3 times, each time feeling something cold and sharp twist in my stomach. She displaced me from the house because Prince couldn't handle my scent, but now she wanted me to walk him? The logic was so twisted, it made my head spin. I rolled off the cot and grabbed my sneakers, my joints protesting from the uncomfortable night. The garage door creaked as I opened it, and I stepped into the morning humidity that was already building despite the early hour. The sprinklers were running across the neighbor's perfect lawn, and somewhere in the distance, I could hear the sound of a lawnmower starting up. Normal people doing normal things on a normal Saturday morning. People who probably slept in their own beds and woke up to coffee and newspapers, not to text messages treating them like unpaid dog walkers. I walked around to the back door, where Mom was waiting with Prince on his diamond-studded leash. The dog was pristine white, freshly groomed, his little pink tongue hanging out as he panted in the heat. By the time we got back, the house was coming alive. I could hear voices from the kitchen, the sound of coffee brewing, and the sizzle of bacon in a pan. My stomach growled loudly, reminding me that I hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. I returned Prince to my mother, who was bustling around the kitchen in her pink robe, already fully made up despite the early hour. "Maya, perfect timing. I was just making breakfast for everyone. Could you set the table? We'll need place settings for 12. 12! I counted quickly in my head. Uncle Carlos, Aunt Sophia and her 3 kids, Cousin Miguel and his girlfriend, Cousin Rosa and her husband and baby, my mother and me. That was 12. But when I walked into the dining room, I saw that the table only had 11 chairs. The 12th place setting was at the kitchen counter, separated from the family table by a breakfast bar. "Mom," I called out, "there's only 11 chairs at the table." "Oh, that's fine. You can eat at the counter. There's more room there anyway." More room at the counter, away from the family conversation, facing the kitchen instead of the people I'd supposedly come to spend time with. I stood there for a moment, staring at the lonely place setting on the counter. The plate looked so small and sad, sitting there by itself, while the dining room table gleamed with my mother's best china and crystal glasses. "Maya, honey, could you help me with the pancakes? I'm making them from scratch." From scratch. The pancake mix I'd bought, and the recipe I'd printed out for her. But sure, she was making them from scratch. I walked back into the kitchen and found her standing over the stove, flipping pancakes with a satisfied smile on her face. The kitchen was chaos. Dirty bowls everywhere, flour scattered across the counter, eggshells in the sink. Someone was going to have to clean all this up after breakfast. That someone was going to be me. "You're so good at this," I said, trying to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. "Well, I've been cooking for this family for 30 years. You learn a thing or two." She glanced at me sideways. "Speaking of which, after breakfast, I was hoping you could help me with the lunch preparations. I planned a whole spread for when everyone gets back from the lake." "Gets back from the lake? Oh, didn't I mention? Everyone's going to the lake this afternoon. Miguel rented a boat, and Rosa brought all those fun floats for the kids. It's going to be such a beautiful day." I waited for her to mention me joining them. The silence stretched between us like a rubber band about to snap. "What about me?" "Well, someone needs to stay here and prep the food. And honestly, Maya, you've been working so hard all weekend. I thought you might appreciate some quiet time." Quiet time, alone in the house, preparing food for people who were out having fun without me. "I could prep the food later, after we get back from the lake." "Oh, honey, that won't work. Everyone will be starving and tired. We need to have everything ready when they get home. Besides, you know how you get around water. You've never been much of a swimmer." That was true. I'd never learned to swim properly, mostly because we'd never had money for swim lessons when I was a kid. But I could have sat on the boat. I could have enjoyed the sun and the company and the feeling of being included. Instead, I was being assigned kitchen duty while everyone else made memories. "Maya, the pancakes are burning," Mom said, pointing to the stove. I rushed to flip them, but they were already too dark on one side. Ruined, of course. "Oh well," Mom sighed. "We'll just have to make do. Good thing we have plenty of batter." We. As if she'd be the one making the replacement pancakes. As if she'd be the one staying behind to clean up the mess. One by one, the family members wandered into the kitchen, drawn by the smell of bacon and coffee. They looked refreshed and happy, wearing cute summer outfits and talking about their plans for the day. "This smells amazing, Amanda," Uncle Carlos said, pouring himself a cup of coffee. "You've really outdone yourself." "Maya helped," Mom said, which was technically true. I'd helped by doing everything while she supervised. "Maya, you're incredible," Aunt Sophia chimed in. "I don't know how you do it all." "I don't know how I do it all either," I thought. "I don't know how I keep saying yes to things that make me miserable. I don't know how I keep pretending this is normal." But I smiled and nodded and served everyone their breakfast, then retreated to my counter seat while they filled the dining room with laughter and conversation. I could hear them talking about the lake, making plans for the boat ride, discussing who would sit where and who would bring what. None of them looked over at me. None of them suggested I join them. I was invisible again, useful for serving, but not for including. After breakfast, the cleanup began. And by cleanup, I mean I cleaned while everyone else got ready for their lake adventure. I scrubbed the sticky syrup off plates, washed the greasy pan, and wiped down every surface in the kitchen. By the time I was done, the house was empty except for me and Prince, who sat in his designer bed, watching me with those dark, judgmental eyes. "Just you and me, buddy," I said to him, "the two outcasts." He turned away from me, apparently insulted by the comparison. I spent the afternoon in the kitchen, preparing a feast for people who'd spent the day having fun without me. I made sandwiches and salads, cut fresh fruit, and arranged everything on the pretty platters I'd bought for the occasion. I kept checking my phone, hoping for a text or a photo from the lake, some sign that they were thinking of me. Nothing. They were having the time of their lives, and I was their unpaid caterer, working alone in an empty house while they made memories I'd never be part of. Around 4 o'clock, I heard cars pulling into the driveway, doors slamming, voices laughing, the sound of wet flip-flops slapping against concrete. They were back, and they were happy. "Maya!" Mom called out as they poured through the door. "We're back! Is everything ready?" Everything was ready. The food was prepared, the drinks were cold, and the table was set. I'd even arranged fresh flowers in the center, using blooms from the garden I'd weeded that morning. "It looks incredible," Miguel said, surveying the spread. "You really went all out." "Well, I had help," Mom said, glancing at me. "Maya's been working hard all day." Working hard all day while you were playing, I thought. Working hard all day while you were laughing and swimming and bonding with the family I'm supposedly part of. They settled around the table, still glowing from their day in the sun, their hair damp and their skin pink from the heat. They talked about the boat ride, the water fights, the fish they'd seen, the jokes they'd shared. They talked about everything I'd missed, everything I'd been excluded from. And once again, I ate at the counter. Once again, I was separated from the family gathering, listening to their stories like an outsider, like someone who'd stumbled into the wrong house by mistake. "We should do this every year," Rosa said, biting into one of the sandwiches I'd made. "This is exactly what family reunions should be like." "Absolutely," Uncle Carlos agreed. "Amanda, you've created something really special here. Something special. That I'd planned, that I'd organized, that I'd paid for, that I'd executed while they were off having fun. But it was her creation, her success, her triumph. I was just the hired help." After lunch, they decided to have a family photo session. They gathered in the living room, arranging themselves on the couch and chairs, trying different poses and combinations. I watched from the kitchen doorway, holding a dish rag, waiting for someone to call me over. "Maya," Mom called out, "could you take the pictures? You're so good with cameras." Of course, I could take the pictures. I could capture their memories. I could document their joy. But I couldn't be in the pictures because someone had to hold the camera. I took dozens of photos, group shots, individual shots, silly poses, serious poses. I captured every smile, every laugh, every moment of connection between people who clearly loved each other. People who clearly loved each other, but somehow didn't love me enough to include me. "These are perfect," Mom said, scrolling through the images on the camera. "We'll have to frame some of these." "Maya, you should be in some of these," Aunt Sophia said suddenly. "Here, let me take a few with you in them." Finally, someone had noticed I was missing from my own family's photos. But as I handed her the camera and moved toward the group, I saw the quick look that passed between my mother and Uncle Carlos. A look I'd seen before, but never really understood. A look that said, "Do we have to?" "Actually," Mom said quickly, "I think we have enough photos. Besides, Maya's been working so hard all day. I'm sure she'd rather rest than be in family photos, than be included in the permanent record of this reunion I'd planned and executed and paid for." "I don't mind," I said, but my voice came out smaller than I intended. "Maybe later," Mom said, but her tone made it clear that later would never come. I returned to the kitchen, my face burning with humiliation. I'd been dismissed. Politely, kindly, but unmistakably dismissed. That evening, they gathered on the back patio for drinks and conversation. I could hear them through the open windows as I finished cleaning up from lunch and started preparing snacks for their evening socializing. They were talking about old times, sharing memories, laughing at inside jokes I'd never been part of. "Remember when Maya was little and she tried to make us all birthday cakes?" I heard Mom say. "She was so serious about it, but they were terrible, rock hard. We had to throw them away." Laughter. They were laughing at a memory of me trying to do something nice for them. A memory of me, at 7 years old, spending my allowance on cake mix and staying up late to surprise them for their birthdays. "She was always trying so hard," Aunt Sophia said. "Even as a kid, she was like a little adult. So responsible." "Too responsible," Uncle Carlos chimed in. "She never really learned how to have fun." "Never learned how to have fun." "Because I'd been too busy taking care of everyone else. Too busy being the reliable one, the responsible one, the one who handled everything while they had fun." I set down the knife I'd been using to slice cheese and stood very still, listening to them dissect my character like I was some interesting specimen they'd found. "She's always been different," Mom continued, "more serious than the rest of us. Sometimes I wonder if she's even happy. If I was happy?" They wondered if I was happy while actively excluding me from every fun activity. They wondered if I was happy while I worked alone in the kitchen, preparing food for gatherings I wasn't invited to join. "She seems lonely," Rosa said quietly. "I mean, she's 30 and she's never even brought anyone to a family gathering. No boyfriend, no friends, nothing." "Well, she works so much," Mom said. 2 jobs, you know. She doesn't have time for relationships. 2 jobs to pay for her life. 2 jobs to help them with their problems. 2 jobs that left me exhausted and isolated while they enjoyed the benefits of my labor. Maybe she likes being alone, Miguel suggested. Some people do. Maybe she likes being alone. As if I'd chosen this isolation. As if I'd chosen to be the family servant instead of the family member. I couldn't listen anymore. I walked back to the garage, where my cot was waiting in the hot, stuffy air. I sat down on the edge of the narrow bed and stared at my hands, which were red and raw from all the cleaning and cooking and working. This was my life. This was what I'd accepted. This was what I'd trained them to expect from me. And for the first time, I felt something crack inside my chest. Not break, but crack. Like a foundation that's been holding too much weight for too long. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through the photos I'd taken that afternoon. All those smiling faces, all those moments of joy and connection. A family that loved each other, celebrated each other, included each other. A family that I wasn't really part of, no matter how much I gave them. I looked at the last photo I'd taken, a group shot of everyone on the couch. They looked so happy, so complete, and I realized that they were complete without me. They didn't need me to be family. They needed me to serve the family, but I wasn't actually part of it. The crack in my chest spread a little wider. I was 30 years old, sleeping in a garage, excluded from my own family reunion, after spending weeks planning it and hours executing it. I was 30 years old, and I was invisible to the people who were supposed to love me most. But what if I didn't have to be invisible anymore? What if I stopped making myself small and useful and forgettable? What if I stopped saying yes to everything and started saying something else entirely? The thought was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. I'd never been anything but the good daughter, the helpful one, the one who sacrificed for everyone else. I didn't know how to be anything else. But maybe it was time to learn. Tell me honestly, have you ever felt invisible in your own family? Drop a comment below about the moment you realized you were being taken for granted. The second night in the garage was worse than the first. The heat was unbearable, and every sound from the house felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I could hear them laughing, playing music, having the kind of spontaneous fun that happens when families actually enjoy each other's company. I wasn't part of it. I never had been. I lay on that cot, staring at the ceiling, replaying every conversation from the day, every dismissal, every exclusion, every moment when they'd made it clear that I was useful but not valuable, important but not irreplaceable. At some point during the night, I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to find out what they really thought of me. Not the polite, grateful things they said to my face, but what they said when they thought I couldn't hear. The opportunity came the next morning, our last day together. I'd gotten up early again to walk Prince, who continued to act like I was some kind of threat to his delicate sensibilities. When I returned him to the house, I found my mother's iPad sitting on the kitchen counter, still logged into her accounts. I shouldn't have looked. I knew it was wrong, but after 2 days of being treated like hired help instead of family, I was desperate to understand why. The first thing I saw was her Facebook messages, recent ones from just yesterday while they were at the lake. Having the most amazing day with the family. Maya stayed home to prep dinner. She's such a workhorse. A workhorse. That's how she described me to her friends. Not as her daughter who'd sacrificed her weekend to make their reunion perfect, as a workhorse. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was what I found next. There was a group chat, a family group chat that I'd never seen before. The participants were everyone who was staying in the house this weekend. Everyone except me. The name of the chat made my blood run cold. No Maya Zone. I clicked on it with trembling fingers, and my world collapsed. The messages went back months Months of planning this reunion without me, talking about me like I was some kind of burden they had to manage rather than a family member they wanted to include. Mom, Maya's going to want to help with everything. How do we keep her busy but out of the way? Uncle Carlos, give her all the grunt work. She loves feeling needed. Aunt Sophia, as long as she doesn't try to insert herself into every conversation like last time. She's so awkward in group settings. Miguel, why do we even invite her? She just makes everything weird. Mom, because she pays for half of everything and does all the work. We need her for that. Rosa, true, but we don't need her for the fun parts. I had to set the iPad down because my hands were shaking so hard I couldn't hold it steady. They needed me for the work and the money, but not for the fun parts. They'd created an entire group chat specifically to exclude me, to talk about me behind my back, to plan ways to use me without including me. But there was more, so much more. Mom, Maya's sleeping in the garage this weekend. Told her it was because of Prince's allergies. Uncle Carlos, LMAO, you didn't. That's brilliant. Let her think she's making a sacrifice for the dog. Aunt Sophia, poor Maya. She actually believes Prince has scent sensitivity issues? Mom, Prince doesn't have any allergies. I just can't deal with her hovering around all weekend. This way, she's close enough to help, but far enough away that we can actually enjoy ourselves. Miguel, you're evil, Aunt Amanda. I love it. Rosa, honestly, it's kind of perfect. She gets to feel like she's helping, and we get our space. They were laughing at me. They'd made up a story about Prince's allergies just to get me out of the house. My own mother had lied to my face, made me feel guilty for having a scent that disturbed her precious dog, when the real reason was that she simply didn't want me around. She couldn't deal with me hovering. She wanted space from her own daughter. I kept scrolling, each message feeling like a physical blow. Mom, Maya offered to plan everything. Should I let her? Uncle Carlos, obviously, free labor. Aunt Sophia, she's so good at that stuff, and she never asks for credit. Miguel, perfect. Let her do all the work, then we can take the praise. Rosa, does she even realize how pathetic she is? Like, she's 30 and her whole identity is being our family servant. Mom, she's always been like that. Even as a kid, she needed to feel useful or she'd get all depressed and clingy. Depressed and clingy. That's how my mother described my childhood need for love and inclusion. When I tried to contribute, when I tried to belong, she'd seen it as neediness rather than love. Mom, remember when she made those terrible birthday cakes when she was little? She was so proud of them, but they were inedible. We had to throw them away. Uncle Carlos, she cried for hours when she found out. Mom, because she couldn't handle that she wasn't perfect at everything. She's always been too sensitive. I remembered those cakes. I remembered saving my allowance for weeks to buy the ingredients. I remembered staying up late, following the recipe so carefully, wanting so desperately to make something special for the people I loved. I remembered being 7 years old and so proud of what I'd created. And I remembered finding the cakes in the trash the next morning, with my mother's explanation that they were just too sweet, honey. But it was such a nice thought. She'd lied to me then, too. They hadn't been too sweet. They'd been terrible. And instead of helping me learn to do better, instead of appreciating the love behind the gesture, they'd thrown them away and lied about why. I'd been 7 years old, and they'd already decided I was too sensitive, too needy, too much work to love properly. But the messages kept getting worse. Miguel, why doesn't Maya have any friends? Like any at all? Rosa, because she's exhausting. She tries so hard to please everyone that it makes people uncomfortable. Aunt Sophia, And she's always available. Like, doesn't she have her own life? Mom, she works those 2 jobs. But other than that, no. No hobbies, no relationships, no life outside of this family. Uncle Carlos, that's kind of sad, actually. Mom, it's her choice. She could have friends if she wanted them. She chooses to focus on us instead. Her choice. As if I'd chosen to be isolated. As if I'd chosen to sacrifice my social life to take care of people who talked about me like this behind my back. Mom, honestly, I think she likes being needed more than she likes being liked. It's easier for her. Miguel, what do you mean? Mom, if she's indispensable, she doesn't have to worry about whether people actually want her around. She makes herself necessary instead of lovable. The words hit me like a physical blow. Made myself necessary instead of lovable. Because somewhere deep down, I'd always known they didn't really want me around, so I tried to make myself too useful to discard. But they'd figured out how to have both, my usefulness without my presence, my labor without my company, my sacrifice without my inclusion. Rosa. Speaking of which, she's probably going to want to hang out with us today instead of prepping food. Mom, I'll handle it. I'll tell her we need everything ready for when we get back. She'll buy it. Aunt Sophia, she always does. Maya's so predictable. Uncle Carlos, it's almost too easy. Miguel, do you ever feel bad about it? There was a pause in the messages. For a moment, I hoped someone would say yes. Someone would admit that they felt guilty about treating me this way. Mom, why would I feel bad? She gets to contribute to the family. She gets to feel important. It's a win-win. Rosa, plus, she can afford it. Those 2 jobs aren't just for fun. Aunt Sophia, if she didn't want to help, she'd say no. But I'd never learned how to say no to them. They'd trained me from childhood to believe that love meant service, that family meant sacrifice, that my worth was measured by my usefulness. And now I knew they'd done it on purpose. The final message in the chat was from just a few hours ago, sent while I was in the garage, probably while they were having their nighttime drinks on the patio. Mom, last day tomorrow. Maya will probably get all emotional about everyone leaving. Someone should distract her so we can have a nice final breakfast. Uncle Carlos, I'll ask her to drive to the store for something we forgot. Miguel, perfect. We can have our final family time without the awkwardness. Final family time without me, the family member who'd planned this reunion, paid for half of it, executed every detail, and sacrificed her comfort for their convenience. I sat in that garage, holding my mother's iPad, reading about how my own family had systematically excluded me while using my labor and my money to make their reunion perfect. Reading about how they found me awkward, exhausting, pathetic. Reading about how they'd created an entire group chat just to talk about me behind my back. I felt something break inside my chest. Not crack this time, but actually break. Like a dam bursting. Like a foundation collapsing. Like something that had been holding me together for 30 years finally giving way. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn their love, and they'd never intended to give it to me. I'd made myself indispensable, and they'd made me invisible. I'd given them everything, and they'd given me nothing but lies and manipulation and the kind of casual cruelty that comes from knowing someone will always forgive you. But I was done forgiving. I was done making excuses for their behavior. I was done pretending that this was normal, that this was love, that this was what family looked like. I took screenshots of every message, every cruel comment, every casual dismissal, every moment when they'd revealed their true feelings about me. I saved them all to my phone, evidence of the truth I'd finally discovered. Then I did something I'd Never done before in my entire life. I started planning my revenge. Not the screaming, crying, dramatic kind of revenge that would let them dismiss me as too sensitive again. Something subtle, something that would hit them where it hurt most. Their comfort, their expectations, their assumption that I would always be there to clean up their messes. I opened my laptop and started researching. Yacht rentals, spa packages, hotel bookings. If they wanted to treat me like hired help, I was going to show them what happened when the help quit. But first, I had to get through one more day of pretending, one more day of smiling and serving and acting like I didn't know what they really thought of me. One more day of being the good daughter, the helpful one, the family doormat, because they were expecting Maya the pushover, Maya the people pleaser, Maya who always said yes, always sacrificed, always put their needs before her own. They weren't expecting Maya the strategist, Maya the planner, Maya who'd learned from the best, them, how to smile while stabbing someone in the back. I closed the iPad and put it back exactly where I'd found it. Then I walked back to the garage, where I spent the rest of the night planning the most important event of my life, my liberation. By morning, I had everything figured out. The yacht I was going to book with their money, the spa day I was going to treat myself to, the hotel room I was going to check into while they scrambled to clean up after themselves. And most importantly, the message I was going to send to their No Maya Zone group chat, along with those screenshots, right after I disappeared. They thought they knew me. They thought they had me figured out. They thought I was predictable, pathetic, too desperate for their approval to ever fight back. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The morning of the last day, I woke up early as usual, but this time I wasn't waking up to serve them. I was waking up to destroy them. I walked Prince one last time, but instead of feeling humiliated, I felt powerful. This was the last time I'd ever do their bidding, the last time I'd ever sacrifice my dignity for their comfort. When I brought Prince back to the house, Mom was waiting with that same expectant smile. Maya, honey, we need to make a special breakfast for everyone's last morning. Something memorable. Something memorable. Oh, this morning was going to be memorable, all right. Just not in the way she expected. Of course, Mom. What did you have in mind? I was thinking pancakes again, but maybe something extra special. Could you run to the store and get some fresh berries? And maybe some of that expensive maple syrup? There it was. The distraction Uncle Carlos had promised to provide. Send me away so they could have their final family time without the awkwardness of my presence. Sure, I said, my voice steady. I'll go right now. You're such a good daughter, Maya. I don't know what I'd do without you. Soon, she was going to find out. I drove to the store, but I didn't buy berries or syrup. Instead, I sat in my car and made the phone calls that would change everything. The yacht rental, the spa appointment, the hotel reservation, all charged to the credit card I'd been using to pay for their reunion expenses, all scheduled for today, while they scrambled to clean up the mess they'd created. Then I drove back to the house, walked into the kitchen, and looked my mother in the eye. I couldn't find the berries you wanted, I lied smoothly. The store was out. Oh, that's okay, honey. We'll make do with what we have. We'll make do, just like I'd been making do my entire life, settling for scraps of affection while giving them everything I had. But not anymore. I spent the morning playing my role one last time. I made breakfast, cleaned up the kitchen, packed everyone's belongings while they enjoyed their final hours together. I smiled and nodded and acted like everything was normal, like I hadn't discovered their secret group chat, like I didn't know exactly what they thought of me. And all the while, I was counting down the hours until my revenge began. They had no idea what was coming. They thought they were so clever, so subtle in their manipulation. They thought they could use me forever, as long as they threw me occasional crumbs of acknowledgement. They were wrong about everything, but they were about to learn that the hard way. What's the most shocking thing you've ever discovered about someone you trusted? Tell me in the comments. I want to hear your story too. By noon, everyone was packed and ready to leave. But before they headed home, they had one final surprise planned: a luxury yacht tour around the lake, complete with catered lunch and an open bar. It was supposed to be the perfect ending to their perfect reunion. The yacht tour that I had booked and paid for 3 weeks ago, back when I still believed I was part of this family. "Maya," Mom called out, as everyone gathered in the living room with their luggage. "We have the most amazing surprise for our last day. We're all going on a yacht." I looked around at their excited faces, knowing they had no idea what was coming. "That sounds wonderful, Mom. When do we leave?" "In about an hour. The yacht picks us up at the marina at 2 p.m. Isn't that exciting?" It was exciting, just not for the reasons she thought. "I can't wait," I said, and for the first time in 3 days, I was telling the truth. While they spent the next hour getting ready, taking final photos, and packing snacks they wouldn't need, I was in the garage making my own preparations. I pulled out my laptop and began executing the plan I'd spent all night perfecting. First, I canceled the yacht reservation. All of it. The boat, the catered lunch, the open bar, the professional photographer they'd requested. I canceled everything and requested a full refund to my credit card. Then I made a new reservation. Same yacht, same time, same premium package. But this reservation was for Maya Rodriguez, party of one, plus one very special guest. I decided Prince was coming with me. The second part of my plan was even better. I booked myself into the most expensive spa in the city for the entire afternoon. Hot stone massage, facial, mani-pedi, the works. All the relaxation I'd been denied while slaving away for their comfort. The third part was my favorite. I reserved a suite at the luxury hotel downtown for the next 3 nights. Room service, spa access, and most importantly, a do not disturb policy that would keep my family from hunting me down when they realized what had happened. Everything was charged to the same credit card I'd been using for reunion expenses. The credit card that was technically mine, even though I'd been using it exclusively for their benefit. It was time to use it for my benefit instead. At 1:30, everyone gathered by the front door, chattering excitedly about their yacht adventure. They looked so happy, so carefree, so completely oblivious to what was about to happen. "Maya, you should probably change clothes," Aunt Sophia said, looking at my simple t-shirt and jeans. "This is a pretty fancy yacht." "Actually," I said, my heart pounding with anticipation, "I have some bad news about the yacht." The room went quiet. 12 pairs of eyes turned to look at me, their excitement quickly shifting to concern. "What kind of bad news?" Mom asked. "Well, there was a problem with the booking. It got canceled." The silence that followed was deafening. I could see the disappointment spreading across their faces like a wave. "Canceled?" Uncle Carlos said. "How does a yacht booking just get canceled?" "These things happen," I said with a shrug. "Equipment problems, staffing issues, weather concerns." "The marina called this morning to let me know." "This morning?" Mom's voice was getting sharper. "Why didn't you tell us sooner?" I spent the morning trying to find an alternative. I called every marina in the area, but everything's booked up for the weekend. I'm really sorry. The disappointment in the room was palpable. This was supposed to be their grand finale, their perfect ending to the perfect reunion I'd planned for them. "Maybe we could do something else," Rosa suggested weakly. "Dinner somewhere nice." "Most places are booked up too," I said. Weekend reservations. You know how it is. Miguel ran his hands through his hair in frustration. This is unbelievable. The one thing we were really looking forward to. I'm sorry, I repeated, trying to keep the smile out of my voice. I know how disappointed you all must be. Mom was staring at me with a strange expression, like she was trying to figure out if I was telling the truth. Maya, are you sure you did everything you could to fix this? Of course, Mom. I spent hours on the phone. I tried everything. It's just strange that they would cancel at the last minute like this. These yacht companies aren't very reliable, I said. I should have known better than to trust them with something this important. The group started discussing alternatives, but their hearts weren't in it. They'd been expecting luxury and leisure, and now they were facing the prospect of ending their reunion with a whimper instead of a bang. Well, Uncle Carlos said finally, I guess we should start heading home. Our flights are this evening anyway. Actually, I said, before everyone leaves, I wanted to give you all something, a little memento from the reunion. I pulled out my phone and opened the group chat screenshots I'd saved. I thought you might want copies of these photos from your group chat. You know, the no Maya zone one? The color drained from every face in the room. Maya, Mom started, her voice warning. What? I said innocently. I just thought these were such honest, candid moments. Like this one where you talked about how I'm a workhorse, or this one where you laughed about making me sleep in the garage for no reason. The room was dead silent now. Everyone was staring at me like I'd grown a second head. How did you? Aunt Sophia whispered. Your iPad, Mom. You left it on the kitchen counter yesterday morning. I was just trying to check the weather, and I happened to see your messages. All of them. Uncle Carlos cleared his throat. Maya, we can explain. Explain what? How you've been planning this reunion for months without including me? How you created an entire group chat just to talk about me behind my back? How you lied about Prince's allergies because you couldn't stand having me in the house? Maya, you're being dramatic, Mom said, but her voice was shaking. Am I? Let me read you some of my favorite parts. I scrolled through the screenshots. Here's a good one. Maya's so predictable, it's almost too easy. Or how about this? She's always been like that. She needed to feel useful or she'd get all depressed and clingy. Rosa was covering her face with her hands. Miguel was staring at the floor. Nobody was looking at me directly. My personal favorite, I continued, is when you said I make myself necessary instead of lovable. That was really insightful, Mom. You're absolutely right. Maya, stop, Mom said. This isn't how family talks to each other. You're right, I said. Family doesn't talk to each other this way. But apparently, this is how you talk about me when you think I can't hear. The silence stretched between us like a chasm. 3 days of fake smiles and hidden resentment had finally exploded into the open. We never meant for you to see those messages, Aunt Sophia said quietly. I know. That's what makes them true. Those are your real feelings about me, aren't they? That I'm pathetic and exhausting and awkward. That you need me for the work, but not for the fun parts. That's not, Rosa started, then stopped. Because it was true, and we all knew it. The yacht wasn't canceled because of equipment problems, I said. I canceled it. This morning, while you were all getting ready for your final family time without the awkwardness of my presence. You what? Mom's voice was sharp. I canceled the yacht you were all so excited about. The yacht I booked and paid for. The yacht that was supposed to be your perfect ending to the reunion I planned and organized and executed while you treated me like hired help. Maya, that's, Uncle Carlos started. Petty? Vindictive? Maybe. But you know what else it is? Effective. I picked up Prince from his designer bed in the corner. He didn't struggle this time, maybe sensing that something important was happening. Where are you going? Mom demanded. Prince and I are going on that yacht tour. Turns out there was availability after all. Just not for 12 people. Only for one. Plus one emotional support dog. I'd never seen my mother's face turn that particular shade of red before. You can't take Prince. He's my dog. Actually, he seems to like my scent just fine now. Must have been all that fresh air in the garage. Maya, this is ridiculous. You're acting like a child. Am I? Because according to your group chat, I'm acting exactly like you expected me to. Too sensitive, too dramatic, too needy for love and approval. Well, congratulations. You finally pushed me far enough to become everything you said I was. I walked toward the door, Prince tucked under my arm like a furry white accessory. Where are you going after the yacht? Rosa asked. Spa day, 5-star hotel, room service and champagne, all the things I've been working to pay for while you enjoyed the fruits of my labor. Maya, we need to talk about this, Mom said, following me toward the door. No, we don't. We're done talking. We're done pretending this is a normal family dynamic. We're done pretending that you love me when you clearly just need me. I paused at the door and turned back to face them one last time. They looked shell-shocked, like they couldn't believe their sweet, compliant Maya was capable of this level of defiance. I want you to think about something while you're figuring out how to get home without my help, I said. I want you to think about what this reunion would have looked like without me. No planning, no coordination, no clean house, no prepared meals, no transportation arrangements. Just 12 people trying to figure out how to have a family gathering without anyone to do the actual work. Maya, please, Mom said, and for the first time, she sounded genuinely desperate. Let's just sit down and talk about this like adults. Like adults? Adults don't exclude family members from group chats. Adults don't lie about dog allergies to manipulate sleeping arrangements. Adults don't take credit for work other people do. I opened the front door, and the afternoon sun streamed in, warm and bright and full of possibility. But here's the thing that's going to bother you the most, I said. I'm not doing this because I'm angry, although I am. I'm not doing this because I want to hurt you, although I do. I'm doing this because I finally realized that you were right about me. Right about what? Uncle Carlos asked. I did make myself necessary instead of lovable. I did try to earn love through service instead of demanding it as my right. I did let you treat me like a workhorse because I was afraid that if I wasn't useful, I'd be nothing. The room was silent except for the ticking of the grandfather clock in the hallway. But I'm not nothing, I continued. I'm a 30-year-old woman with 2 jobs and my own apartment and the ability to plan perfect family reunions and organize yacht tours and coordinate travel for 12 people. I'm competent and reliable and generous. I'm everything you said I was, except I'm not pathetic. Maya, Mom whispered, the pathetic thing was letting you convince me that love had to be earned through sacrifice. The pathetic thing was accepting scraps of affection in exchange for unlimited service. The pathetic thing was believing that family meant putting everyone else's needs before my own. I shifted Prince to my other arm. He was looking around with interest, probably wondering why everyone looked so upset. I'm going to have a wonderful afternoon on that yacht with Prince. We're going to eat catered food and drink champagne and take pictures of ourselves having fun. And then I'm going to check into my hotel and order room service and sleep in a king-size bed with Egyptian cotton sheets. And then what? Rosa asked quietly. And then I'm going to figure out what my life looks like when I stop making myself available to people who don't appreciate me. I'm going to learn what it feels like to be selfish for once. I'm going to discover who I am when I'm not bending over backward to please people who think I'm awkward and exhausting. Maya, you're our family, Aunt Sophia said. We love you. No, you don't. You love what I do for you. You love having someone to handle all the details you don't want to deal with. You love having a reliable source of free labor and emotional support. But you don't love me. You don't even like me enough to include me in family photos. The truth hung in the air between us like a weight. How long are you going to punish us? Mom asked. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself. There's a difference. I stepped outside, Prince and I heading toward my car. Behind me, I could hear the urgent whispers starting, the panicked conversations about what to do now, how to handle this crisis. But their crisis wasn't my problem anymore. For the first time in my life, their problems weren't my problems. I drove to the marina with Prince sitting shotgun, his little head out the window, ears flapping in the breeze. He seemed to be enjoying our adventure, which was more than I could say for the family we'd left behind. The yacht was beautiful, exactly as luxurious as I'd imagined when I'd booked it weeks ago. The captain greeted me warmly, clearly not caring that I was alone instead of with a group. Prince was a hit with the crew, who fussed over him like he was a celebrity. As we pulled away from the dock, I took out my phone and did something I'd never done before. I took a selfie, me and Prince, with the yacht and the lake in the background, both of us looking genuinely happy for the first time all weekend. Then I sent it to the No Maya Zone group chat with a simple message. Having the time of our lives. Prince says thank you for the recommendation. Turns out he loves my scent when it comes with champagne and caviar. I turned off my phone after that. Whatever chaos was erupting in that group chat, whatever panicked messages they were sending, whatever plans they were making to fix this situation, none of it was my concern anymore. For the first time in 30 years, I was exactly where I wanted to be, doing exactly what I wanted to do, with no obligations to anyone but myself. It felt incredible. Have you ever had a moment where you finally stood up for yourself after years of being walked on? What finally pushed you over the edge? The yacht tour was everything I dreamed it would be and more. For 3 hours, Prince and I sailed around the lake while I ate gourmet food, drank champagne, and took photos of every beautiful moment. The crew treated me like royalty. The sun was perfect, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt genuinely free. But I knew the real storm was brewing back at the house. When I finally turned my phone back on, at 6 p.m., I had 47 missed calls and over 100 text messages. The panic was palpable, even through the screen. Mom, Maya, please call me. We need to talk. Uncle Carlos, this has gone too far. Come home now. Rosa, Maya, I'm sorry about the group chat. Please don't do this. Miguel, where are you? Mom is having a breakdown. Aunt Sophia, Maya, we're family. Family forgives each other. But the best ones were the ones where they started to realize the full scope of what I'd done. Mom, Maya, how are you paying for all this? Please tell me you're not using the reunion credit card. Uncle Carlos, Maya, the hotel called. They said you charged $2,847 to the card for a 3-night stay. What the hell? Rosa, did you really spend $2,200 on a spa day? With our money? Our money. That was rich. It was my credit card, my account, my name on every reservation and receipt. But now that I was spending it on myself instead of them, suddenly it was our money. I scrolled through the messages, watching their tone shift from confused to angry to desperate to manipulative. It was like watching 30 years of family dynamics play out in fast forward. Mom, Maya, I understand you're upset, But this is not how we handle problems in our family. Not how we handle problems? Their way of handling problems was to exclude me from group chats while using my labor and money. Their way of handling problems was to lie to my face while laughing about me behind my back. Miguel, Maya, you're being selfish. Everyone had to change their flights because of you. Selfish. There was that word again. I was selfish for finally putting myself first after 30 years of putting everyone else first. I was selfish for using my own money on myself instead of them. But the messages that really got to me were the ones where they tried to guilt me back into compliance. Mom, Maya, I'm your mother. I raised you better than this. She'd raised me to be a doormat. She'd raised me to believe that love meant service and that my worth was measured by my usefulness. She'd raised me to accept scraps of affection in exchange for unlimited sacrifice. Maybe it was time to unlearn everything she'd taught me. Rosa, Maya, please think about baby Elena. She's asking where Aunt Maya went. She doesn't understand why you left. Using the baby to manipulate me. Classic. But Elena would be fine. She was 2 years old and would forget about this weekend in a month. Unlike me, who would remember being excluded and dismissed for the rest of my life. Uncle Carlos, Maya, your mother is crying. Is this really what you want? Was this what I wanted? My mother crying because her carefully constructed system of exploitation had finally collapsed? Her realizing that she couldn't use me forever without consequences? Yeah, actually, this was exactly what I wanted. The messages kept coming throughout the evening, each one more desperate than the last. By 10 p.m., they'd moved from anger to bargaining. Mom, Maya, if you come home right now, we can forget this whole thing happened. We can start fresh. Start fresh. As if 30 years of conditioning could be erased with one conversation. As if I would go back to being their unpaid servant after finally tasting freedom. Aunt Sophia, Maya, we'll include you more. We promise. Just please come back and let's work this out. Include me more. Like letting me eat at the grown-up table instead of the counter. Like putting me in family photos occasionally. Like pretending to value my presence while still treating me like hired help. No thank you. Miguel, Maya, we get it. You're mad. You have every right to be mad. But this isn't solving anything. But it was solving something. It was solving the problem of me accepting unacceptable treatment. It was solving the problem of me being available for people who didn't appreciate me. It was solving the problem of me being a doormat, disguised as a daughter. The final message came at midnight, and it was from my mother. Mom, Maya, I love you. I know I haven't always shown it the right way, but you're my daughter, and I love you. Please don't throw away our relationship over this. Our relationship. What relationship? The one where she used me for free labor, while excluding me from family activities? The one where she lied to my face about dog allergies while laughing about me in group chats? The one where she took credit for my work while treating me like an embarrassment? That wasn't a relationship. That was exploitation with a family label slapped on it. I didn't respond to any of the messages. Instead, I ordered room service, took a long bath with the expensive bath salts the hotel provided, and went to sleep in the most comfortable bed I'd ever experienced. Prince slept on the Egyptian cotton sheets beside me, probably wondering why he'd never been allowed to sleep on anything this nice before. The next morning brought a fresh wave of messages, but the tone had shifted again. Now they were angry. Uncle Carlos, Maya, you've made your point. Now stop being a brat and come home. Brat. I was 30 years old with 2 jobs and my own apartment, but I was a brat for refusing to be their servant. Miguel, this is the most selfish thing I've ever seen. Mom didn't sleep all night because of you. Good. Maybe she'd spend that sleepless night thinking about how she'd treated me. Maybe she'd realize that actions have consequences, even when those actions are directed at someone who's supposed to love you unconditionally. Rosa, Maya, you're tearing this family apart. Is that really what you want? I wasn't tearing the family apart. I was revealing that it was already broken. I was showing them what happened when the person who held everything together finally let go. But the message that really got to me came from Aunt Sophia. Aunt Sophia, Maya, we know we hurt you. We know we haven't treated you fairly. But running away isn't going to fix anything. Come back and let's talk about this like adults. Like adults. There was that phrase again, adults who exclude family members from group chats. Adults who lie about pet allergies to manipulate sleeping arrangements. Adults who take credit for other people's work. If that's what adults did, maybe I didn't want to be one. By noon, the messages had taken on a different tone entirely. Now they were threatening. Uncle Carlos, Maya, if you don't come back and discuss this rationally, there are going to be consequences. Consequences. What were they going to do? Exclude me from family events? Stop inviting me to gatherings where I did all the work but got none of the credit? Stop pretending to care about me while talking about me behind my back? Those weren't consequences. Those were gifts. Mom, Maya, I've called your work. I told them you might not be coming in tomorrow because of a family emergency. She'd called my work. She'd actually contacted my employers and made excuses for me without my permission. The level of control she thought she had over my life was staggering. I called both of my jobs immediately to clarify that there was no emergency and that I would be in as scheduled. The last thing I needed was for her manipulation to cost me my income. Miguel, Maya, if you don't respond to these messages, we're going to assume something happened to you and call the police. Call the police because a 30-year-old woman choosing to stay in a hotel instead of sleeping in a garage was clearly a missing person case. I sent one message back to the group chat. I'm fine. Stop calling my work. Stop threatening to call the police. I'm an adult, making adult decisions about my own life. Leave me alone. The response was immediate and explosive. Mom, don't you dare tell me to leave you alone. I'm your mother. Uncle Carlos, Maya, you're acting like a spoiled child. This whole thing is ridiculous. Rosa, Maya, please just come home. We miss you. Miss me. They missed their unpaid event coordinator. They missed their reliable source of free labor. They missed having someone to handle all the details they didn't want to deal with. But they didn't miss me. They'd made that clear in their group chat messages, where they'd talked about how awkward and exhausting I was, how they needed my work, but not my presence. Aunt Sophia, Maya, your mother is talking about driving to every hotel in the city to find you. Please just tell us where you are so we can work this out. Driving to every hotel to find me. The woman who'd lied about pet allergies to get me out of her house was now threatening to hunt me down across the city. The desperation was almost funny. Almost. I turned off my phone again and spent the day at the spa, getting every treatment I'd ever dreamed of. Massage, facial, body wrap, mani-pedi, the works. I spent hours being pampered by people who were paid to take care of me, instead of giving my care away for free to people who didn't appreciate it. That evening, I had dinner at the hotel's 5-star restaurant, alone, by choice, for the first time in my life. I ordered the most expensive thing on the menu and a bottle of wine that cost more than I usually spent on groceries in a week. It was delicious, but more than that, it was mine. I'd earned it, I'd paid for it, and I was enjoying it without having to share it with people who would take credit for choosing the restaurant. When I turned my phone back on that night, The messages had reached a new level of desperation. Mom, Maya, it's been 2 days. I haven't eaten. I haven't slept. Please just call me back. She hadn't eaten. Right. Because picking up a phone to order takeout was impossible without me there to handle it. Rosa, Maya, we've learned our lesson. We'll do better. Just please come back. We'll do better. The same promise every abuser makes when their victim finally fights back. We'll change. We'll do better. It won't happen again until it does. Uncle Carlos, Maya, enough is enough. You've punished us long enough. Time to come home and be an adult about this. Be an adult. By returning to a dynamic where I was treated like a child who existed solely to serve the grown-ups. Miguel, Maya, I drove by your apartment. Your car isn't there. Where are you staying? We're worried. They were stalking me now, driving by my apartment, checking on my whereabouts, treating me like a runaway teenager instead of a grown woman making her own choices. The final message of the day came from my mother, and it revealed everything I needed to know about how she really saw me. Mom, Maya, I don't understand why you're doing this. I gave you everything. I raised you. I fed you. I put a roof over your head. I made you who you are. And this is how you repay me? This is how you repay me. As if my entire existence was a debt I owed her. As if loving me, caring for me, and treating me with basic human decency were investments she'd made that I was now obligated to pay back with unlimited service. This is how you repay me. For 30 years of conditioning me to believe that my worth was measured by my usefulness. For teaching me that love had to be earned through sacrifice. For making me believe that family meant putting everyone else's needs before my own. Yes, Mom, this is exactly how I repay you. I started typing a response, then deleted it, then typed another one, and deleted that too. There were so many things I wanted to say, so many years of hurt and resentment and suppressed anger that I wanted to unleash. But in the end, I sent just one message. You didn't make me who I am. You made me who you needed me to be. I'm making myself who I want to be. Then I blocked all of their numbers. The silence that followed was deafening. For the first time in my adult life, my phone wasn't buzzing with requests for help, demands for service, or guilt trips disguised as family obligation. It was just quiet. And in that quiet, I realized something that changed everything. I liked the person I was when I wasn't trying to please them. I liked the woman who stood up for herself, who demanded respect, who refused to accept scraps of affection in exchange for unlimited service. I liked the woman I was becoming when I stopped being their doormat and started being my own person. The next morning was my checkout day, but I didn't want to leave. For 3 days, I'd lived like the person I'd always wanted to be. Confident, independent, valued. I'd been pampered instead of serving others. I'd been the priority instead of the afterthought, but I couldn't stay in a hotel forever. Eventually, I had to go back to real life and figure out what that looked like now that I'd burned the bridge to my old one. As I packed my things, I found a list I'd written on the first night when I was planning my revenge. It was a list of everything I'd done for each family member over the years. All the sacrifices, all the favors, all the times I'd said yes when I should have said no. The list was 7 pages long. I looked at it for a long time, remembering each incident, each moment when I'd chosen their comfort over my own. Each time I'd made myself smaller so they could be bigger. Then I did something I'd never done before in my life. I tore it up. I didn't need to keep score anymore. I didn't need to prove my worth through service. I didn't need to maintain a record of everything I'd given them because I wasn't giving them anything else. I was done being necessary. I was ready to start being valued. Or better yet, I was ready to start valuing myself. What would you have done if you found that group chat about yourself? Would you have confronted them or disappeared like I did?